Hi, everybody. Art Gruenberger with Puppet Art Theater Company. Welcome to the People of Puppet Pages. Today, I get the pleasure of introducing Rose and Justin of Modern Times Theater. We hope you stick around. We hope you join our conversation. We'll start in just a moment. Was I on mute that whole introduction? Could you hear that? Oh, you can hear that. All right, that's great. I'm just wondering if it was amateur hour at the Puppet Pages.
You're on mute, Art. You're on mute.
Can't hear you. I love that. So, Modern Times Theater delights crowds with a fresh take on entertainment styles of the past, including novelty music, handmade puppetry, and classic comedy. Husband and wife performers Justin Lander and Rose Friedman have been adapting and updating Punch and Judy shows and performing original variety acts with Vermont Vaudeville for over a decade. They strive to present quality entertainment, that which the whole family can enjoy. Everyone, welcome Justin and Rose. Yay, Justin and Rose. Yay, Justin and Rose. Welcome, you guys.
Thank you.
I've been really, really looking forward to talking with you guys. I got to see your show at the National Capital Puppet Festival, where you did one of your versions of The Perils of Punch. Mm-hmm. And I was thrilled. It was great, and I can't wait to talk to you guys about it. How was doing that at the National? I know you guys work in front of live audiences. That's where you thrive, right? And so now all of a sudden you're working for this little lens of a little camera. How is performing that at the National or the festival?
Well, it was like half, or I'd say it was 10% live theater, because we had this like front row setting where people were invited to be there with us, and then Alex and Olmsted were kind of like DJing it. So when we wanted to, we could see and hear the audience. And so when we needed the moments in the show where we absolutely need audience feedback, they were there. And at weird delays and with awkward timing sometimes, but they were there more than not. We've done other live stream shows.
Yeah, it wasn't our first live stream show, but I would say it was exciting because it was a gig that, we would be excited to get in real life, obviously. And in a way, there was this opportunity to do it that normally we wouldn't have. Like for us to travel down to DC would be hard, especially at that time of year. We probably wouldn't be able to swing it. So that was actually this kind of wonderful gift of this moment that we got to do it. It was also like, oh, I wish we could do it in person, but if it was in person, we might not be there. So it was kind of a wonderful thing. And there were so many puppeteers who watched that show. So that's always like a special kind of terror.
Absolutely, right. The adrenaline really pumps. It's like, all right, kids' audiences are easy enough. I mean, there's a few fears that you'll have around that, but performing for puppeteers, you're like, oh, are they going to see that this eyeball is looking in this direction and this other one is looking over here?
Everything. Yeah, they're going to see everything, and they're going to be like, yeah, I do that one.
Yeah.
So I know where you stole that bit from.
Oh yeah. I saw what's his name do that 20 years ago. What else you got?
Yeah, we've seen that YouTube. Yeah.
You're like, oh no, I stole it from a different guy. Oh, that's weird. But that was its own special terror. But it was also like so joyous for us because we're, we live really rurally. We're not like connected to a big scene up where we are. We are amazingly connected to a lot of puppeteers, partly, people coming up through Bread and Puppet or just people we've met in our travels. But we feel mostly kind of in isolation up where we are. So we don't get that kind of chance to perform like in a festival like that. And that was really delightful.
Neat. Yeah. And with Alex and Olmsted on the reins of the show, I mean, you guys were on stage and they were deciding when to allow you to hear things, when to spotlight somebody else's camera, like a little kid with that gleeful kind of look in their eyes. And as an audience member for that show, that was really, really fun to be able to watch you guys and then Alex and Olmsted have really good timing with that sort of thing, and they knew just when to drop someone else in. And so the overall performance of that was just really so much fun. And your rhythm in your show is exquisite. It is so much fun to watch you guys work together, because there is just like an intuitive rhythm between how you guys are working and how you guys are going back and forth. How much of that is scripted, and how much of that is just when you guys get on stage, that's the magic that happens?
There's not a lot of script work going on. There's like bullet points, and the show is really a living entity that's constantly evolving and changing. And it can go in different directions depending on what the audience does, depending on how sharp we are with each other, depending on if it's like a school with 200 kids and everything has to be kept sort of clean and goofy, or if it's like we did a first night show. We did 2 this year. One was like early and it was all kids, and one was late and there was like 2 kids in a room of 100 people. So all the kiddie stuff gets wiped out of the show, and all of the
kiddie stuff like takes on a new meaning. Like suddenly there's like dirty jokes that you didn't really intend to be dirty, but because the audience is all adults and it's New Year's Eve, everyone's like, "Oh, we know what that means." It's like, okay.
Oh yeah,
not quite what we meant, but all right.
Or the old saying, "Honestly, I'm just trying to help the sheep over the fence, officer."
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Yeah. Let me write that down, Art. Hold on.
But yeah, there is a like thing that happens also with the audience, I think, that's improvised, because we're reading off of them so much.
And who are, since you're out front, Rose, are you the one that's got your finger on the pulse of the audience more, or is it Justin, or is it both of you together in sync as well?
I think I do have a better sense of what the audience is doing because I can see them much more clearly and I can see the details of what's happening. But Justin is much more of a confident improviser. I'm better at responding to the improvisation, but I'm more of a believer of scripts. So so there, there's lots of interesting dynamics that happen also between, but I feel like it's a 3-way thing, because it's between us and the audience. And often we will show up at a gig, kind of look around. I wonder if anybody's going to come. God, this feels like one of these shows where 4 people show up, but then more people than 4 show up and it's fun. And then they're starting to assemble and we're kind of like, oh, should we do this song? Because we just like look at them and we're like, they're going to like this one, I think. So there's also just that level of improvisation. Like, oh, we should put that bit back in because this seems like an audience that could handle that. And then there's just the improv that happens in the show, which is, I feel like is so much in response to what they laugh at. If they're a really laughy audience, they get so much more. They get so much more improv thrown at them.
Yeah.
But it's always my goal and private challenge to throw Rose with.
I swear that was going to be my next question.
Yeah,
that's what I'm. That's what I'm going for.
His secret goal is can he like throw me off? Yeah.
I like just getting to know you, Justin, a little bit with doing puppet pages. I just got that sense, and when my puppeteer Rachel and I, we've got a few 2-person shows that we do, and it is my goal to get her to break. I mean, if I can get her to break during the show, if I can say something that is just so funny and so appropriate, and it gets her to break, that will make my week. That will make, and I just assumed that it were similar. So how often do you get to throw Rose off then? How?
Not that often.
I would say like 1 in 20.
That's not
1 in 20. I completely make her like, I hear the like kind of laugh, and maybe once a year I can make her like completely drop what she's doing and
like get confused. Yeah. That's right on.
That's just enough to keep you going and trying, isn't it? I mean, that's just the right number. That's perfect.
I file ideas away and hope that they bubble up at the right moment.
Yeah.
That is tremendously fun. So the quickness I mean, and I know you guys are doing like classic vaudevillian stuff, and the quickness of your responses to each other is so much fun. And what I really love, in fact, I'm going to show a clip in just a minute here of the Perils of Punch, some clips that you guys put together for us. What I really love about it is how you, Rose, on the outside are seeing everything that's going on, and the characters in the puppet stage are usually so oblivious to it, and so the audience is seeing what they're seeing, and that is a beautiful trio of things going on that just make for hair standing up on the back of your neck joy, right? I mean, it's just so much fun. So do you mind if we take just a look at this little 3-minute clip here, and I'll share it here with our audience, and you guys can see exactly what we're talking about if you haven't seen Modern Times Theater performed there. And this is The Perils of Punch, right? This is from The Perils of Punch, which is a continuing, evolving piece of work that you guys continue to do. Yep. Let's take a look.
4, 3, 2, 1. Mr. Punch. There he is.
Thank you. I'm Mr. Punch.
Mr. Punch.
I'm Mr. Punch.
Mr. Punch.
And I got a hunch.
He's got a hunch.
If there's a bunch,
If there's a bunch,
there's a bunch
there is a bunch.
of people after lunch.
After
I'll
lunch,
make them laugh.
you'll make them laugh.
I'll make them
You'll
scream.
make them scream.
I'll make them sing like a chicken.
Like a chicken.
My brains are very runny. That's what makes me so funny. So let me call you honey, buddy, and give you all of my money. I'm Mr. Punch.
Mr. Punch, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you.
Very nice.
Thank
again,
you.
Mr. Punch.
Thank you.
Perfect opening number. No,
No,
not yet.
you are not supposed to crow until the end of the show. That's the beginning of the show.
Oh, I can't tell the beginning from the end.
Just
All
come
right,
back at
so
the
go
end.
backstage.
Boy, I'm really sorry
It's
about
all right.
that.
Let's just try that again because
Maybe
kind
we
of
can
messed
edit
it up.
it out.
Yeah, that sounds good. Here we go. Just do that again.
Okay.
Mr. Punch, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank
Perfect.
you. No,
Not yet.
it's still the beginning.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Look, don't you know your cues?
I can't tell the difference. I got a brain the size of an almond.
All right, just go backstage.
Come back at the end.
All right, it's all right, Mr. Punch. You kind of messed up the whole beginning.
Sure did. I'm really sorry about
It's
that,
okay.
folks.
We'll just keep going.
I'm sorry, too.
You are not sorry.
No.
I am sorry.
You're not sorry.
I am.
Not.
Mr.
Not.
Can you please keep the chicken backstage?
Yeah, I told him he's got to do what I say.
All right.
You can't tell me what to do.
All right. Is he out?
Oh yeah, he's out.
All right.
Yeah, he's taking a nice warm bath with some carrots and potatoes.
Oh, that sounds good.
We have to fear sharks.
I'm pretty sure it was the shark. There's a shark right next to you, Mr. Punch.
Where is there a shark right next to
There was a shark right
There
next
was
to you.
no shark.
Or there
next to me.
was, but
I
now
don't
it's
think
gone
there's
again.
any
Now there's a shark right behind you.
Well, no, there's no shark right
Mr.
behind
Punch, you have to be
I'm looking
careful.
right now.
Because that shark is still on the
There's
loose.
definitely
And now
no
it's downstairs,
shark.
Mr. Punch.
What do you mean downstairs?
It's down. It's right down below you.
First you tell me to look down
Just look
here.
down there. Now it's
and
behind
then-
you again.
And then you tell me to look behind me
Punch,
again.
just be careful.
no shark
because
there,
the
babe.
shark.
I don't think
The
that
shark is.
I just
Mr.
don't think
Punch.
that. I don't want to. I just
Listen,
think
the
that. Would,
shark.
I don't think that.
Mr. Punch.
Yes, that's my name.
You've got to be careful.
Of what?
The shark. The shark
The
that was
shark.
chasing Judy.
Back
is
to the
now
shark
after
again.
you.
Now it's all about
And
the
right-
shark.
look
All of
right
a
next to
sudden,
you, look right
it's
next to
I'm looking right next to me, and
You've
there's
got
nothing
to look
back there.
quicker.
I'm looking quicker.
Mr.
I'm looking
Punch.
quicker.
All right,
Just
just
looking.
just focus.
Looking
Okay, you
focus.
gotta focus.
Focus.
Here comes the shark. It's going to come for you. You just have to watch.
I think that you are seeing things, okay?
I'm
Because if there was a
not.
shark, I would. Does anybody smell seafood? It smells kind of like seafood in here. Look, if there was a shark, I would hear the shark.
I'm the shark.
Oh, there is a shark.
Just so much fun, so much fun. Does anyone smell seafood? Is perhaps the classic joke of the piece. I tell you, when I started doing He's Right Behind You shows, one person where there's the sneaky character sneaking up on the. I felt really guilty because I had very limited exposure to puppetry, and the guy that I was working for had a lot of that in his show, and I felt like I was stealing his bits. And then I saw someone perform a Balinese shadow puppet show that was a classic show that had been around for hundreds of years, and it had a Right Behind You bit. And I was like, oh, I'm not stealing from this puppeteer. I am stealing from all of the puppeteers. And that felt somehow a lot better.
Yeah.
If it goes back that far, it becomes like a public domain joke. It's like you're dipping into the pot of shared human cultural experience.
You're a tradition bearer.
Yeah.
Not a thief.
Yeah. And that's a great justification for a lot of the work I do.
That's how I justify it.
So many of these hand puppet things, like there's only so many things you can do with these two things here, and though we're always trying to invent, all puppeteers are trying to invent new ideas, there are all these things that just work over and over, and they don't run out. They continue to be effective in front of audiences, particularly if you're performing for young people, because there's always a fresh crop of young people, and they hit a certain age and then like they're not going to be at a puppet show anymore. But there's always like the new ones coming up. So
you guys looked at classic Punch and Judy. You guys looked at vaudeville performance. You guys looked at like old timey music as well, and you're bringing all of that forward. And it's one thing to bring this stuff forward, but it's another thing to do it really, really well. And I think that honors the tradition of it more than anything else. And you guys do such a good job at not only doing the bits, but doing them really, really well, and giving them your own little bit of personality. Tell me a little bit about like what.
Thanks, Art.
Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome. What got you guys started doing the Punch and Judy shows? What was the hook for you guys? What's the history there?
I think I think we both come from like a few different threads of art making that are that sort of tie into this, and I come from more of a like traditional theater background, but Modern Times Theater actually was my parents' company. They started Modern Times Theater in the late 70s in New York. And so that company that I grew up with was doing actor-based, script-based theater, but very much, growing out of like popular political theater forms. So I come from kind of that background and wanting to bring theater to people in unexpected places, taking theater out of this hallowed, expensive hall and bringing it to people who might not otherwise have access to it. So there's like that aspect of Punch and Judy, the popular theater aspect, that's super appealing to me from that background. But then also bringing my acting stuff from my growing up and from my training into puppetry, which I feel like is not always the way in. I mean, that's like sort of a strange path to bring into it, but it turns out is, I think, super useful. I think it's like those two things are kind of separated a lot of times in the performing arts, but I think they very much belong together. Having good actors and good puppeteers working together is just brilliant when it happens that way. We both also had childhood dreams of being stand-up comedians. So we both come from this very deep, long, since we both can remember, desire to make people laugh.
Does it scratch that itch for you guys? Would you say, like, now you've been doing it for a decade, does this scratch that itch enough, or is there more that you want to do to?
We always need more. We always need more. Yeah. You're like both class clowns, it's like you will do anything. Like you will throw your whole self under the bus to make people laugh. Like that's how it works, right? To be class clown, you'll sell your family if it would make people laugh.
Absolutely. My current Yeah.
Yeah.
My current web designer is a guy who had his last name started with H and mine starts with G. And so throughout high school, we went to high school together. And throughout the entire high school experience, in any class that I would have with this guy, I would sit right behind him. And he was the hardest guy to get to crack a smile, let alone to giggle. And so my entire high school experience was sitting behind this guy and constantly whispering things to try to get him to bust up in the middle of class. And really nothing has changed since then. So
Right.
I'm
Like
amongst
need that edge to
Well,
sharpen something.
What's your
Yeah.
success rate?
you know, about 1 in 20 and about once a year, I would say.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Standard.
You're doing great then.
just enough to keep me going.
But yeah, I think that like that background in comedy, like classic comedy, you know, and stand up and also like musical comedy or novelty music, both like all these threads exist in all of our backgrounds. And like the straight man, funny guy dynamic is something that has also like long interested us. I feel like I steal a lot of stuff. We steal a lot of stuff from like Mel Brooks and Carl Reiner, and from Sid and Imogene. You know, there's like a few partnerships that are deeply inspiring to us, both in the puppet show and in vaudeville. And
It's the chemical, right? I mean, it's the chemical interaction in those ones that are just like Abbott and Costello and yeah.
and just the way that they play off each other. And then Justin has, I think, more of a visual art background that feeds into the puppet making. But we met at Bread and Puppet, so the Punch and Judy show grew out of
I
that.
never think of Bread and Puppet as like a bunch of people that really are trying to get people to laugh. That's never been my impression.
It's like a subcult. Like the
funny
funny
ones.
ones are there. You know, there's like the stilters. There's the like painters.
The musicians.
There's the strictly musicians.
Or
and
like
then-
the activists, like people who come from just like a political activist place, and they're finding this as a way to like to do demonstrations. But we came in through like much more theater background or desire, interest, and the funny. Like we can't leave the funny alone. We always are trying to find the funny.
God, the circus isn't funny this year.
Right,
What can we
and-
do to make it funny? Like
Right.
it just needs to be a funnier actor. Like that.
I love that there's a subculture trying to accomplish that for Bread and Puppet. That just warms my heart.
Yeah.
Well, Paul Zaloom, is an old puppeteer, and he's like been a major mentor to us over the years. And obviously, like seeing him, I saw him when I was growing up, going to Bread and Puppet with my family, seeing his Punch and Jimmy show, like seeing that you could like take this old tradition and just completely reinvent it for what you need it to be and for what you do, like what you have to offer it, was really inspiring. But Peter Schumann also talking about street theater traditions, like he would just sometimes lecture randomly or wax on about memories of childhood in Europe. And that did something to both of us. I mean, we both also have this like problem with nostalgia for like a time that we didn't live through.
We were born in the wrong century. Is that pretty much the
Really
case?
unhelpful. Yeah, it's really unhelpful. I don't recommend it to anyone. We have like a really old farmhouse we're going to spend the rest of our life dealing with because of our stupid nostalgia. But the beauty of this ideal, and we don't claim to believe that any of the culture and political situation that went along with those fancy olden times was any good for anybody.
That's not what you're attracted to.
No, but this idea of, a theater, a form that everybody knew and that everybody knew the rules of the game with. And it still exists a little bit. When we went to France, we saw, the Guignol shows in the park, and we saw the way our friends who live there, or the generations of their family, all grew up with it. They all know the game. They all know the rules. They all have the memories of it. And that totally like pushed all of our buttons. Like that's.
How do we do that here? How do we
Yeah.
start to like train an audience to play that game with us? And that's part, we don't go far from home. We stay largely in Vermont and New Hampshire, and we perform a lot within an hour of our house. So we've started training audiences, and we get these kids coming back. We do this punch card thing, where you get this card at a show, and and it has like a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on the back. It's our business card, but anybody who comes to the show can get one of these cards, and we punch it. And when they get 5 punches, they get a prize. And so
That's brilliant. I love that.
there's these kids who are like, I'm getting my 5th punch today. And, it's training that audience to want to come back and to like lead new kids. So like they understand, yes, you scream when you see the alligator or the shark, or what some kid asked us before show, what's the chaser today? The chaser, like whatever the behind you thing is. Each year we try to put a different thing there. It's like, what's it gonna be? Is it the lion? Is it the shark?
Like they've all got their individual favorite chaser. That's brilliant. Yeah. I love that. When I performed at this little theme park for years, and it was where I cut my teeth, and we would do 4 shows a day, 5 or 6 days a week during the summers, and it was exhausting, but it was where we would put up a show that was just an idea, and by the end of a 2-week run, we would have a show.
Yeah.
And we would have kids come in and watch it 4 times a day. And parents were like, you want to go back and watch this thing again? And kids love seeing this because they know what's going to happen, and they love and I was always surprised by that. But it was at the theme park, you had to sort of embrace it, and it forced you to try to keep them entertained along with a new audience. So it forces you to try new bits as well, because you've got the same kids in the audience over and over again. Is that sort of your experience as well, since your performance, your touring area is smaller?
Yeah, and there are those kids who come over and over again, and I always feel like they're the kids that are like taking apart the machine to see how it works. Like there's a lot of that, like, now I'm gonna sit over here and I'm gonna like I think I figured out what you do in that part, and I love that, because it's, whatever that part of their brain is, like, it's going to make sense eventually, in their lives, what it is they need to figure out from it. But it is like a very different relationship. And we do have now, in pretty much any audience in our usual travel area, we will have the repeat and the new. And so we're also sort of catering to both at the same time. But like sort of, we've grown a lot in the patience with ourselves that people do want to see it again and again, like that is okay. That, we have so much insecurity about, they've seen this bit already, it's got to be totally new. And it's not just being the tradition bearer. It's also that like kids want to see that thing again because they liked it, and they need to see it again to figure out what happened there. So it's that not letting it go totally stale, but understand, because there is a thing about the Guignol in Paris. Like we wanted to see it many times to like be those kids who were trying to figure out what they were doing. And our friends were like, it's so awful. Like why do you want to see it? It's so dull. It's the same show that it was 75 years ago, like exactly the same show. And the performers just like phone it in. So that's not quite our goal.
No, but there was 2 different. They said, yeah, that one's but this one they do something different. And at the time we were like, we don't want to see that one.
No, we don't want anything different.
We want to see the original.
Mm-hmm.
And we're studying at the time then, right? I mean, you were
we want to see the old stale.
We
thing.
got a message in response to our Punch and Judy trailer from a British professor of Punch who said, "Oh, I like what you're doing. It's not Punch and Judy, but it's interesting." And I was like, "Oh, right.
It doesn't count.
We don't do Punch and Judy anymore. We use the characters of Punch and Judy to do something really different." And I like watching the like current Punch and Judy shows that are happening in England, but I don't find a lot of them exciting in the same way that I did like 10 years ago.
They are truly tradition bearers. I mean, they are actually like just doing the thing according to the rules. A lot of them, not all of them, but that's not at all. I mean, we're not truly tradition bearers. We're true Americans. We're like, let's take this
This
thing
is the American Punch and Judy.
like inject a bunch of sugar into it and like jack it up. And, I mean, it's like
It is very American, isn't it? It's like, oh yeah,
most
we're gonna take this tradition and we're just gonna twist
Yeah.
it into something
yeah,
bizarre
these
and lovely.
Europeans, yeah, they don't know.
Tradition? Sure, we know that tradition. Sure, that's what we're doing.
Just put it on steroids and yeah.
Yeah, I think if you look in history, it looked just like this, right?
Yeah.
When you got like, so how long did it take you to begin to develop your faith in your audience, that like being able to do, like you were mentioning before, being able to do a bit over and over again and know that your audience is with you? Like that took me forever to finally get there. And I feel like that's still my biggest challenge, is like, how long can I hold a pause and just have faith that the audience is going to be with me in that moment of discomfort to try to get the second laugh out of a bit. And like, I feel like I'm still trying to, how long did it take you guys to develop that?
We're not done.
Yeah, I kind of think we're still going. I mean, I think just performing like as much as we possibly can. I think it's that, like, performing constantly that keeps it from feeling like, keeps the terror at bay, you know, because you have an off show or a small audience or something like that. And if that's just like one of many in a week or a month, then it just balances out in a really different way. And when I think about, like, at the beginning of our time performing together, how few shows we would do, you know, in a year and 6-month period, each one had like so much more weight, you know, and each one was like, are we good enough to be allowed to do this? And I feel like now that permission is like fully granted, like it's been tested enough that we don't have to ask ourselves those kinds of deep reflective. I mean, we can still have bad shows and stuff, but it's enough to know that it's going to work somewhere. When we try it in a new place, it's always a little bit like, maybe it doesn't work here. Maybe we can't do it here, because I mean, Punch and Judy is such it's its thing, you know. It's like, it does have boundaries, even though sometimes it feels boundless to me, like what you could do with it. It's so open and flexible. It's like, we have done county fairs, and those have been very hard sometimes. Like, you know,
the transient audience where they may stay or they may go, and you've got to hustle to keep them staying.
Yeah, and they're not at the like rural county fair to see Modern Times theater. Like, they came for the, you know, cars crashing into each other and the like temporary tattoos, and they like are just walking by, and they're like, oh, what are those people doing? You know, and most of them keep walking.
No thanks.
But I mean, again, we're like so strange in our particular goals and fantasies about theater that, like, you know, those poor people in it was like the lemonade stand next to us that's like a
It
giant
looks like a lemon. Yeah.
inside of. Yeah, those poor people had to watch our show so many times. Like, they were like facing our stage. And my friend came to babysit our kids one day, and she went to get them a lemonade, and the lemonade people were like, the puppet show is about to start, it's really good. She told me that. And it was like I won an Oscar. It was like, that was like the best thing that has
A lemon-shaped Oscar, exactly.
Yeah,
Well,
it's like,
and, like
the lemonade people like the show.
the sausage guy too.
Yeah.
We're finishing our last show, and he came over and he was like, "You guys are the best. I want you to have this sausage." I've been working the fair for 25 years.
Yeah.
I never seen nothing like that.
Yeah.
You like onions?
Yeah. But that's sort of the goal, you know? I mean,
Yeah,
we're
to get the sausage, I tell you.
and to catch people unawares, you know, people who did not sign up they did not necessarily sign the agreement to be in an audience and to, like, you know, critique the show.
If you can get those people,
That's really
like just like the parents who walk into the library show and they sit down and they're like, now the children are yours, and I'm gonna get on the phone. And if you get them to put away the phone, it's like
That's a
this,
huge
you know,
moment.
that's the success of the show that day. Like the kids, they're easy. But if you can get the parents to be entertained too, then we feel like, oh, we're really doing our job. We're doing like what we want to do. Because we didn't set out to be children's entertainers, and we don't see ourselves as children's entertainers. It just so happens that they're like the vehicle by which we entertain.
But yeah,
all
doing
people.
kids stuff is such a like wonderful backdoor into theater, because people will bring kids to stuff and come to family stuff that wouldn't, come to see an adult play, for example. And especially like in this area where we live, it's very rural and still somewhat agrarian, and it's like theater and live performance is not built into the culture. Like that's not something that you necessarily need to do or spend money on. There's certain ways that people gather and forms of entertainment music that have happened traditionally, but like going to the theater and paying money, it's like that's a training that has to happen here. And so it's really a cool way in. And because so many of our shows are free, and they're like attached to a library or a school, it makes us like not threatening. We're not in that box. And
Yeah, they're not having to dress up in a tuxedo to go to the theater. Yeah. What a sneaky way for you guys to
something, and then like they're surprised by the fact that they were entertained as well. And so that part's interesting and something that we get very excited about, and that definitely like drives a lot of our passion for it. And so now we're in this situation where it's like we can't really catch people unawares in the same way with like online theater. There's all the challenges that we're all experiencing right now of like, how do we find our audience? Who is our audience? How do we reach them? How do we get them? But that particular thing that we love so much, of the people who didn't mean to see our show getting to see our show, is of course 1,000 times harder.
Yeah.
Though for a lot of the online shows that we've done already, like now maybe it's changing as people are more out and about. The shows we have done, the whole family's sitting there because they don't have anything else to do. So here's a moment where the adults can just relax and they don't know what to expect. So they are kind of that same thing.
Yeah.
I was thinking the same thing, is that I've noticed when I've been able to see my audience in the few shows that's happened for me, I've seen, the kids sitting like right in front of the screen, right in front of their little teeny camera. And I'm noticing the parents sort of sitting back and both watching their kid enjoy the show, but also giggling. And that's one of the highlights for me is the two tiers of laughter that I hear in a live show. Is like, I hear the kids giggle and laugh, but then I've got those times in my show, and a lot of them, where it's right for the grown-ups, and it's agony when those jokes don't hit because they're not paying attention, but it is ecstasy when I sneak a little something in and you hear the grown-ups laugh and the kids are kind of looking around like what was funny. That's just precious to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there is a little bit of that's still possible for sure. And also we've been doing some library shows that are public, or Family Center hired us, and so we are still getting some of that kind of audience that isn't necessarily selecting it exactly, like they're just signing, there's an opportunity for the kids to do something online. And it's true, you can catch them unawares even in their own living room.
So how have you guys adapted? So, March 13th happens, the world shuts down. Did Vermont shut down? Vermont being a small part of the world and sometimes an isolated part. Did it happen on, March 13th for you guys as well?
It did, because we were in the middle of doing a series of puppet shows that we do every March, which we called Saturday Storefront Trilogy. And so we rent an empty storefront in a downtown it has been in our town of Hardwick, but this year we had launched this whole new thing, and we went to this town of St. Johnsbury, which is like a former industrial, beautiful city, filled with the most gorgeous buildings and architecture, but really struggling financially, and just one of those downtowns that's just folded. So many beautiful storefronts to choose from for the theater. And so we rented one, and we took this empty former aquarium store, selling fish and I don't know what they sold, but it was decked out in a really funny way, a lot of fake stone, about 17 million plugs
Lots of outlets.
So many
Lots
outlets.
of outlets.
Like, where do we plug in? Anywhere, really, is where
Really,
we plug in.
everywhere.
Yes.
So we took that and we, hung up a bunch of stuff and we sort of decked it out and we cleaned it up and we set up our, popcorn and donuts and cider, and we set up our merch table and our letter writing little postal system for writing a letter to Mr. Punch. And we set up our stage and we figured out how they're going to get to the bathroom and the exits and make it safe for everybody. And we did one of those, one Saturday of 2 shows, both completely sold out. We're like, what a success. We moved it to a new town and it totally worked. And then the Friday before the second of the trilogy, the arts organization that we were working with, it was, we got to stop. Sorry.
Yeah.
But and then
That was a bummer.
days later, the governor shut down all
Yeah.
public gathering.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So that was like a real screeching halt break in the middle of a project, which felt totally devastating at that moment and terrifying too.
Especially after a week of success with it, right? I mean, yeah.
It was totally
because
surreal.
we work solid for a month, plus all the getting ready stuff for months before that to make puppets, write the shows.
Mhm.
It's 3 different shows that we write, and just
they link together, so each one is a cliffhanger. Come back next Saturday and find out what happened.
Brilliant.
like
So
Mr.
Mr.
Punch was falling through the air.
He's falling.
Falling. And what will happen when will he land? Will
He's
he,
like, I'm still falling. And then,
So-
so then months later, we saw, some kid and her mom, and the kid was like, and the mom was like, she's wondering if Mr. Punch is still falling.
I can see the therapy bills, decades later, of these kids with unresolved falling issues because
Well,
of the cliffhanger.
importantly, Punch
Well,
is still falling.
in the air, he can't get coronavirus.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
he's
just
doing
floating
really well.
there. Yeah. Yeah. So there was a lot unresolved. And the whole thing kind of felt like that. That we were just I wonder when we're gonna land. And that was just all the work, gone. And March is that time when the summer schedule is filling up. It's not totally full, but it's getting there. And so then if we looked at it, it was oh, these gigs are probably all going to be gone. And yeah, one by one. Yeah, the two fairs, the 2 county fairs. And yeah.
And so how long did it take you guys to then pivot to the performance? Because you guys are doing a combination of live performances and live streaming performances now. So
Yeah.
how did that pivot happen, and what are you guys up to these days?
We started through our Vermont vaudeville thing. We started doing driveway shows, which were just we'd drive up to a house, people would order us, and we would drive up to a house and get in the back of the pickup truck and play a 20-minute music set. And we did that for about a month, and then it was enough. And we were like, what we have to do is figure out how to do a puppet show like this. So 6 weeks later, we had this mobile puppet stage on the road. And
It's like a trailer. I've seen pictures of it on your website. It's this great V-shaped or A-shaped trailer that's just a perfect puppet stage.
it was just the bottom, and I built this house on top of it that I normally, in our regular stage, I'm standing up. In this one, I sit down because it would have been too tall, which has been a nice challenge to get to sit down.
There are worse challenges, Justin.
But we imagined that we would be using that just to do private shows in people's driveways. And we thought, if we're doing a private show in somebody's driveway, it's got to be a lot cheaper. And so we can't waste time setting up, and we don't want to get out and get too close to people. So it was okay, we can just
cleanest way to
drive
just,
up
and
to the curb and do the show right there, and then drive away and have a zero contact situation.
Nice.
But very quickly we started getting bookings from libraries that we had performed at or who heard about us. We had the biggest word of mouth last minute booking season we've ever had, where librarians in Vermont were telling other librarians, and
Which, like, we've been trying to make that happen for years. Begging people, oh, will you please, if you put it out there, it'd be really great. We
Just took a pandemic.
like all the systems for that have been disappearing as funding has been cut. And then suddenly this, I think everyone was just so last minute because, the numbers were changing. And now what it's been for a lot of the summer and the fall has been 150 outside cap, which is like, that's huge for a library audience.
Yeah. Yeah.
So as librarians got a little more comfortable with the idea, and I think it was like they had to see, is somebody else doing it? Okay, other people are doing it. It's not just me. So, okay, I can do it. And then it was this last minute booking thing.
And would you bring the trailer out for those shows? Were
Yeah.
they outdoors? And
Our stage outdoors on a breezy day, you can't walk away from it.
Yeah, this one doesn't work so well for that.
Yeah.
So if it's under a tent, that's a different story. But yeah, we just roll the thing right up there and use that, and there's no wind issues, and yeah.
But
God,
I would say that we did a lot of like panic pivoting. Like we definitely, there was like an amazing surge of like creative energy that happened after the initial kind of like depression, sadness, which didn't last for very long because the panic was so intense.
Yeah, the panic will do that, right? It's a great remedy for depression.
Oh yeah. So there was like a huge surge of adrenaline that I feel like fueled this massive creative output. And so we started sending out these puppet show action packs. Because a few people immediately were like, "Oh, I want to send you guys a donation. This must be so hard." And I was like, "What do we send them when they send a donation?" Okay, here we're gonna do. So then by donation, you would get this little box with everything you need to make a puppet show.
We were like, "Oh, we need to write a book. Let's write our like how to make a puppet show book that has like the glue recipe and all the methods and like what stage and like some ideas. Let's write this book right now. Okay, we're gonna write this book. I'll do the drawings.
Oh my God, don't you feel so sorry for our children? Imagine what it's like to live in this house.
He was signing chapters to them as well. You write chapter 3. You write chapter 4.
We can't talk right now. We're busy working.
I need you to proofread this before bed.
I thought you lost all your work. Yeah.
Yeah, but this is unpaid work, okay? It's even more important.
It's your distance learning.
Exactly. Oh my gosh. Yeah, so we made the puppet show action packs with the new book and then the driveway deliveries started. That was just music, and then we made the trailer once it started getting nice out. So we were just also like really, I think a lot of the drive and inspiration was this, like, theater is not dead, like theater will be fine kind of feeling. I had a lot of that, that surging energy around, okay, like theater can work around this. We can figure something out. So in a way, I think that's a survival technique, not just like financially, but, emotionally, and just to have that thing to hold on to. Just
as much for you as for your audiences that you're performing for, right? Yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, to imagine just like completely putting it down.
And it's incredible how much this kind of pressure has made my company get more creative than we've been for years. It's like we're not creating a lot of new shows right now, but we're taking our existing shows and we're saying, how can we and that first 6 to 8 weeks was excruciating in the panic and in the learning curve of everything that we had to learn. And just the last few months has been so, it's like I've got a brand new set of Tinker toys and I get to play and I'm doing things and I'm like, let me try this. And this is working. And are you guys experiencing that sort of like renewal of creativity as well?
Yeah. I mean, I think we just went through our vaudeville creation time, which is its own very intense, taxing level, because we're making new variety acts. So generally we make new variety acts every 6 months for that show because it's twice a year. And so that's, a lot of minutes of brand new material, and the audience is a lot of returning audience. So it's really got to be like new. and better than the last one and all of that pressure. And we missed the vaudeville show, obviously, in the spring. We didn't do one at all. And that's like the longest we've had off from that project in more than a decade.
Are you
So-
working with other people on that project?
Yeah, so that's a bigger team that we're part of for that. So yeah, but it's just the two of us making our new acts, and then we're fitting into this larger show that's more collaborative. But you know, it's all, I feel like it all is just like feeding into the same pool. I mean, it's all trying to make people laugh. It's all honing that particular craft.
And we had to figure out how to do that show outside.
The
So
vaudeville show.
yeah,
Mm.
yeah.
So yeah,
And-
we took it out of this theater where we are, and we brought it outside.
And was the audience comparable to the audiences that you've had in past performances for the vaudeville show?
Well, this theater holds like 330 people, this old opera house. And so since we could only do 150 in our outdoor show, that felt different. Plus, people had to be more spaced out and they were outside. So it all felt really different. But we have like a hardcore support audience that comes to vaudeville. So people like kind of made up for the strangeness. They were
Audience was trying harder to be supportive because of the
so grateful.
nice.
They were just, everyone was super excited that anything was happening. It was like a very unique and beautiful, you know, communication between audience and performer. In that
Yeah,
way.
lovely,
Yeah.
lovely. Now we're coming up to our time, you guys. But Justin, I know you're working on. Is it 2 one-man shows that you're working on now? That
We're each working on a show that could be done alone,
Hmm.
so that we don't both always have to go, like particularly for farther away gigs.
nice.
So yeah, my show has gone and been performed and had a bunch of bookings, live bookings scheduled, which all got canceled. And so it has some video for it already. And Rose's show, we both performed our shows at the Puppets in Paradise Festival that Sandglass puts on a year ago. Yeah, those are both like limbo projects now. Like, do they get adapted for online performing? Is it worth doing that?
They hadn't
Or-
gotten worked over enough to feel really there with it, you know, like they still need that out on the street, like really trying it out time.
And if you're adapting it to online, that is a lot of work, even for an established show. How long are we going to be in pandemic mode, and is it worth adapting this particular show? We're struggling with that as well. Well, let's look at it. What's the name of this one with the cloud in the center of the stage?
This in the other clip we showed that cleanup scene with the guys with the mops. Those are the
Yeah.
Bozo brothers, and this was like to spin them off into their own world. So it's the Bozo Brothers show. One version it was called Imaginarium with the Bozo Brothers, or it's just called the Bozo Brothers.
Fun. Well, let's take a look and then we'll talk about it.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. Woo. Look at that. More big Maximus. Watch this. Nothing up there. And I have nothing up there. Boogity, 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 boo. Ta-da!
says, hallelujah, 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 hallelujah.
Thank you.
Very, 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 very fun. Absolutely fun. Now, the Bozo Brothers, I noticed in the previous clip when with the Perils of Punch, you were doing a bit of rhythm where one was, banging the can on the thing, and the other's banging the broom up against the side. I didn't realize until, I don't know, about 5 or 10 years ago that was a traditional part of some Italian Punch and Judy.
Yeah.
Is that also the same with the French Punch and Judy, where they're using the entire stage as rhythmic?
Not that
Not that we've
saw.
seen, but we've definitely seen some Italian performers doing traditional pieces that have a lot more of that.
That was so interesting to watch them find their own rhythm and to be using the puppets as the instruments pounding up against the various wooden parts of the stage.
Yeah.
Is this a show, this one with the cloud, is this a show that Rose could also take out? Will you guys exchange your one-person shows, or will you have your own and this is your...
Our own show. Yeah, I'm working on something that's a different tradition. That's a tradition that Russian women would perform in the market, of the skirt that turns into a stage that lifts up over the head and turns into a one-person stage. So that's a tradition that an old family friend and mentor, Amy Trumpeter, who has her version of Punch and Judy show that she does in a skirt, has taught me and shared a lot with me about how that works. And so that's something that I've wanted to do, since I first saw her show, probably when I was about 5. But yeah, no, it's like something to be working towards as my own version. But I feel like because we have these very different performing styles and strengths, it's hard to switch out the roles that we do. It's pretty set. Yeah.
Nice. Well, you guys, I'm sorry, go ahead, Justin.
These shows are definitely like snapshots of what's in our particular subconscious.
Yeah.
It's not, it would be very strange in hers and vice versa.
Yeah, it doesn't fit.
Yeah. Rose is like, thank goodness. Well, if you guys want to know more about what Modern Times Theater is doing, you can check them out on puppetpages.com and see what they're up to and see what their offerings are, both for live performances and for live stream performances. You guys, it's been a real pleasure just getting to chat with you. It's just been a real pleasure getting to work with you guys on the Puppet Pages project. I can't wait to meet you guys actually in the flesh, in person, see some of your shows, and have a little in-person fellowship when this whole thing is over. So thank you guys so much for chatting with me today. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Art.
Oh, we've watched you interview the other puppeteers, and it was like, I can't wait for our turn.
He's so good.
Well, excellent. Well, if you want to see any of the interviews that we've done with all of the other puppeteers, it's all available on Puppet Pages Facebook site or Puppet Pages YouTube channel. Tune in. You can watch all 7 episodes I think we have now. And Liz Joyce of Puppet Pages, she will be interviewing me next week. So I'm looking forward to that. I don't like not being in the driver's seat. I don't want to be interviewed. I just rather talk about you guys. So we'll see how that goes. But thanks a lot, you guys. Thanks everyone for joining us. And we hope to see you guys next time. Thanks, you guys.
Bye.